this episode, and arc for that matter, didn't really go the way I expected it to, but I think that's part of the magic and charm and majesty that holds this series in such high regard.
Hey, Hunter, episode 58. Is it time to retreat? Time to retreat, I say.
Well, that was a little anticlimactic, but well. Well, hello, my brothers and sisters and hunters and Phantom Troop members, past and present, of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another review on the awesome and really just kind of thrill-a-moment, unexpected twists and turns tale of Hunter x Hunter. Our last episode saw us with, of course, Krollo being captured by Karapka, Leorio, and Melody, and you know, basically him winding up making some demands. The first one, of course, being that we know of, is that Pakunoda is supposed to meet them at this airfield or wherever it's supposed to be at 8 o'clock or before 8 o'clock. And really, that's how the episode ended off. You know, Gon and Killua, of course, are still in the Phantom Troops' grasp, and they were to go back to their hideout. So that's how things left off, and that's how things pick up over here. And it was a great episode, but it was not what I was expecting. Again. And I don't really care so much about it, you know, having these big one-on-one battles and everything like that. I just felt like this arc should have had some more showcasing as far as just some of the abilities of some of these Phantom Troop members. Certainly back in episode 51 when they went on their rampage and slaughter and just cut through Mafia members, it was interesting and cool, but you really didn't get to see a lot of evenly matched battles, you know, where they faced off. And that's the part that I think was a little anticlimactic, but anyway, we'll put that aside for right now. The episode opens up with Pakunoda having met with and is now standing across from a chained Krollo. Even his mouth is chained up now, and he's kind of trying to mentally communicate like, hey, this is his weakness. The chain user's weakness is that he puts his friends above all else, right? And that's really the turning point and the whole crux and really the whole point of this story arc, is that Karapka was driven by hatred and anger, but now has found something that's more important, and that would be friends and friendship and people that he cares about. So that's what I took from it. That's the moral of the story, and that's what I'm going to stick to. Anyway, what he winds up doing is he winds up going and putting a couple of conditions on, you know, he says, I'm going to say a couple of conditions, and then you can agree to them or not. I'm going to use my judgment chain, a little pinky chain, and if you break those conditions, obviously it's aimed at your heart, it'll kill you, you know. So the condition that he puts on Krollo is that he's not allowed to use Nen or to speak to any other Phantom Troop member, you know. So Pakunoda agrees, because of course Krollo is in, boom, puts the chain on him. Then he gives Pakunoda, and I don't know if these apply to Pakunoda too, these first set, I think they're separate sets, but then Pakunoda is not is to bring back the boys there, you know, Gon and Killua, and release them before midnight, no tricks, no bullshit. And the second part is not to talk to the other members about him, about Karapka, about the chain user, right? So they can follow him or whatever. So she agrees. Boom, puts the judgment chain around you know, his heart as well, or her heart as well, excuse me. So I apologize, that's the man nose that threw me off. So, but anyway, so Pakunoda winds up going back to the base, the Phantom Troops hideout, and winds up going to take Gon and Killua. And Finks is still like, this is bullshit, it's not happening, let's just go with you, tell me the location, we'll fuck him up, you know, and this and that. And he's keeping in mind that, you know, that the laws are absolute of the spider, and he's keeping that above everything else, right? So then Machi goes and jumps in, the cute purple-haired chick with the threads, and is like, don't worry, go ahead, Paku, you know, I'll stop him if he tries to go after you, right? And then you get Fei Tan, the cool little brooding kid with the dark hair, and he's just like, oh yeah, you think you can stop us? So it's looking like there's going to be like this awesome war between a bunch of the members of the Phantom Troop. But unfortunately, that doesn't go down either. Gon winds up breaking free of his chains just to show them that he can, and winds up yelling at Finks and going, you stupid bastard. They're not controlled, because then Finks is like, oh, I bet you they're controlled by him and everything else, they're being manipulated. He's like, they just want to save their boss. They just want to make this exchange without loss of life. Is it that hard for you to understand that you don't need to kill and destroy everyone and everything? And I really like Gon's speech and whatnot, because Finks is trying to tell him, oh, you back off and this and that. And Killua breaks his chains too, and he, you know, and then it looks like they're about to go toe-to-toe with him, and Finks says, you take one step and I'll cut your head out, take your head off. And Gon's like, then I'll stand here. You know, but he wants to get his say in, right? So Franklin eventually winds up being the voice of reason and just says, listen, you know, what's the worst case scenario, you know? And they lay it out for him and everything like that, you know, and really the worst case scenario is not a very bad scenario at all. The worst case scenario, as far as Franklin's concerned, is that they all could die, and of course the spider could not live. You know, that the troop would not live on. The main thing is to him is that, listen, worst case scenario, Pakunoda and Machi are being controlled by them, by a chain user. If that's the case, when she returns, they'll kill him, you know, if the boss doesn't come back. But hey, let's play this hand out. We're already in the middle of it, right? And that's kind of how he goes. And I like that. He's the voice of reason, you know? So, and then Finks goes and he tells Franklin, oh, well, everything better be cool, and if he doesn't return, I'm going to kill you. So there's a bunch of idle threats going on here from a bunch of frickin' ding-dongs is what it is. You got a bunch of alpha males, a bunch of big swinging dicks and titties, I guess, for the women, in the room, and nobody really wants to go and admit they're wrong or back off, and they don't have their leader there to calm them down. But really, ultimately, they wind up not fighting, and we wind up seeing Pakunoda go and take off with Gon and Killua. As she goes and approaches the airship to get on this airship alone and everything else, we see Hisoka walk up, right? And his whole deal with Illumi was very anticlimactic as well, because he doesn't care about the troop, just wants to fight Crollo, right? He's going to turn him on to fight this big badass guy. He's going to get a big old heart on and hang a fucking, you know, a towel on it and put a cheeseburger on the end of it. But anyway, I don't even know why I said something like that, but Hisoka winds up getting on the ship with him. He calls Kurapika and says, let me get on the airship, this and that. He actually threatens to kill Gon and Killua if he doesn't, and then in his mind he's like, I wouldn't do that. But he gets on the ship, and we find out that Illumi actually just wound up putting some pins in his face, and he just imitated Hisoka and somehow pulled an okie-doke, a switcheroo with him, and Illumi's sitting there in the base, so they all think that Hisoka's still there, right? So, again, anticlimactic in that sense. So two airships wind up landing on this just plateau in the middle of nowhere, and they do the exchange. Crollo goes one way, and Gon and Killua go the other. Gon, Killua, Leorio, Melody, and Kurapika go and get in their airship and take off, right? Hisoka goes and jumps out of the airship and pulls off his shirt, and then pulls off his fake spider tattoo that he uses with his bungee gum texture thing, his texture surprise, right? He pulls that off. He's like, I have no need for this. And he goes, I want to kill you. I'm going to fight you. Well, Crollo now, because he couldn't say anything when he thought that Hisoka was a troop member, but when basically Hisoka said, hey, listen, I'm not a troop member, and he pulled the thing off, then he was able to freely speak, right? Because this is an absolute thing with this judgment chain, if he uses his nen or whatever. So then he goes and he says, that's fine, but guess what? There's not a lot you can do to me. The chain user put some conditions on me, and one of them is that I can't use nen, so I'm not going to be much of a formidable opponent. I'm not going to be much of a fight, is what he tells him, right? And the best part of the episode, and almost probably the series to this point for me, was the look on Hisoka's face, right? Hisoka's ass just got trolled by Kurapika, right? Because Kurapika knows how much Hisoka wants this fight, and now he doesn't even want to fight the dude because he's got no powers. He's got no nen, right? And Hisoka's face was just like, oh. I mean, it was like he just swallowed a big smelly fart or something. He was just like, oh. And it was great. I love seeing it. So Hisoka goes and gets back on, you know, the airship or whatever. They leave Crollo there, okay, because Crollo can't interact with or talk to any of the troop members, you know, because of this judgment chain that's obviously around his heart. Hisoka gets back on there with Paku, and he's got his shirt off, you know, looking all like this big buff, like white pedophile clown that he is. And he's basically like, all right, you know what? I have no interest in the boss now. I have no interest in broken toys is what he says, right? So he goes and texts or calls Illumi, tells him he can take off. Everything's done. Pakunoda winds up going back to the hideout, right? And Pakunoda's like hardcore, like Phantom Troop, okay? She's been around since its inception, and what she winds up doing is she can't speak to any of the members about what's going on, so she goes and takes and loads her little magic gun with the bullets, right? Her memory bullets, and puts all of her memories into those bullets, and she only can fire 6 of them at once, and then of course she's going to die because she breaks the one of the vows that she made, the conditions. And I like these conditions too because it keeps people honest, right? So she goes and she fires them into the 6 members, you know, that were the original members that are still there. You know, there's Franklin and, yeah, what's his name? Finks is one of them. Anyway, whatever. He winds up hitting the 6 of them with it. And then Paku winds up going, just chokes, croaks, and dies, right? And as far as I'm concerned, it's a waste of a perfect pair of breasts. Now, they may be bought and paid for, but, you know, because they did look perfect and a little too perky for the outfit that she was wearing. But, man, just seeing that mid-cleavage like that is like, oh, but then you see the nose and you're like, oh, my God, I wouldn't fuck her with a stolen dick. And so anyway, so Paku winds up dying, and what she winds up doing is obviously implanting and imparting all of her memories and everything that she knows onto these 6 members or what have you, right? So a lot of the different things that were supposed to come true did not come true. And Hisoka goes and even kind of reflects on that, as does Crollo. A lot of these verses didn't come true. So, you know, it's kind of one of those like, hey, the ebb and flow of time and fate are actually changing. And that's kind of what I took from it, you know. And obviously, too, we change our fate every time we make a decision. The smallest decision can actually wind up going and changing the course of our lives. And that's what I took from it, you know, in a very big way. Because none of these things had come to pass about the troop losing half its legs, the spider, all that stuff and everything, right? And Hisoka, of course, couldn't get his fight against Crollo. So then what winds up happening is we get this scene with Gon and Killua at the end where they're like, okay, Kurapika's got some kind of fever, and they're basically just like, you know what? They make the same assumption that I did and come to the same conclusion that the important thing is that Kurapika now has friends that are more important and can hopefully help to build a life and consume her with that, or consume him with that, as opposed to the hatred and just the wanting to kill the troop. Because all this stuff with the conditions and everything else, putting it on the chains and all that stuff, it was all driven by hatred and negativity, right? And that's what they're trying to explain, is you don't have to have that all the time, you know? I'm not saying let the Phantom Troop get a pass either. There's some people that really love them now. I don't love them. They're still heartless killers, okay? But at the end of the day, it was a very cool scene to see, I think. Gon and Killua, though, wind up talking about Gon's plan that he talked about for getting Greed Island. And he tells it to Killua, and I guess it goes from a 50-50 chance, even though Gon's not good with numbers. It was originally a 70, then it was a 60, now it's a 50. Killua thinks it's a solid plan. They got to go to the auction house for it, and it's an 80% chance, he thinks. So the episode winds up ending, actually, with them going to the auction, and they're dressed in nice little, you know, suits and everything like that. And as they go and sit down in the auction, they look over and they see Finks from the Phantom Troop, and they're both just out of there, man, like freaking Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner, man. It's a beep, beep, you know, and they're just out. Well, Feitan and Finks wind up cornering them in there, and they're like, "Don't worry, we're not going to kill you. We can't." The whole idea is that, you know, and they explain about the conditions and all this other stuff with, you know, with the Nen chain and the judgment and everything else. And then they explain about how even if they wind up finding Kurapika and killing him, you know, because they're thinking that it's kind of the other way around, that like if you kill Kurapika, then that judgment chain would be gone. Well, I guess like Nen can like carry on into the afterlife, and Nen that is dissipated from someone who has died through, but it's Nen that was made through anger and hatred, I guess can live on for a long time and everything else. That's how they explain it anyway. But the bottom line is, and it was almost a touching moment, is that Gon asks, well, what happened to Paku? You know, Pakunoda or whatever, and they say, well, she died. And you think that they're going to be pissed off, you know, and Gon has a genuine look of like, oh my god, honestly, he didn't want anybody to die, right? Well, they go, and Finks goes and kind of jogs his little memory and goes into a little flashback, and when he got the memories, and when they all got the memories, those 6 got those memories from Paku, when she had left with Gon and Killua, she said, why don't you two just overpower me and run? I'm my weakened condition, you could probably take me, and then your friend could kill my boss, you know? And Gon's like, because we're friends, and because we care about them, and because we don't want to see there be an unnecessary loss of life. We don't want to see anybody die, right? And for me, that was a very pivotal moment in the sense that, you know, Killua was this assassin, and Gon is this younger kid who was young and impressionable. But the bottom line is as mad as they were at the Phantom Troop for what they did to the Kurta clan, feeling Kurapika's pain and everything else, they still hold human life above other things, at least at this point. And killing somebody is still not the right thing to do. It's not the right way to go about your objective, you know? And I think that goes back to that whole having something stronger, having love in your heart instead of hatred and negativity really trumps all else. And that's kind of what I took from this whole arc, because this arc, when you thought was going to start out, thought it was going to be a lot of vengeance and about Kurapika, it was, in a way, but there really wasn't a whole lot of vengeance to be had, you know? Uvo was the only one that was killed. Paku obviously died, but it wasn't done from like a cool one-on-one battle. But 2 of the members, of course, were taken down. 3 if you consider Hisoka, because now he didn't want to have shit to do with them. But the bottom line is that it didn't end the way that I thought it was going to end, with the Phantom Troop, most of them being decimated and pretty much laying in a burned ruin, and Kurapika kind of getting what he had desired. It shows you that sometimes your desires aren't in actuality what you should have, what you should do, or what you should get. So that's what I took from it. My episode question for you, though, brothers and sisters, is what were your thoughts on this arc and how it ended? And were you disappointed at all that there wasn't more battles between troop members and others, you know, that we follow? Let me know what your answer to that question is in the comments down below. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Greed Island is coming up next, and we'll look forward to catching you in the next Fun Nation.
Remember to follow me on my other channels on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram too.